Hi everyone, it's Elise from Kit and Clowder, and today I'm going to be sharing with you how I do the watercolor backgrounds around my Copic colored images. Today I'm going to be working on Fairy Abigail by CC Designs, and you can see here that I've already colored her up with my Copic markers ready to go. The reason that I use watercolor paints to do a nice background is that you can get a really smooth, artistic background without needing to use your markers. Often when we use the markers, you can see a lot of the strokes and you lose a little bit of the fluidity that is common with watercolors. So this kind of technique shows you how you would say do it with distress ink paints or anything like that. You can try the same thing with them, but we're trying to really emulate that distress ink background while still using our Copics. So the paints that I'm going to be using are, I've just got here my little case. These are Sennelier Aquarelle paints, and I'll provide a link to these as well. I just have a 14 pack. So my case is a little bit messy because I make my own colors up the top. But these are really neat. So you can see here it's got each of the colors, and when you open them up, you've got the pans in there. So these are a honey-based paint, and the pigment is really strong, which is great. So I used to have just a really cheap watercolor paint to do in the background, but the problem when we paint watercolors onto Copic blending card is that you can't lay down too much water, otherwise it ruins your paper. So when you use a cheap watercolor paint, you're not able to really build that color up. So I find that these are heaps easier to use. So like I just said, one of the most important things that you need to be wary of when colouring the watercolour background is that you don't lay down too much water on your page. So you really just need to, you need to have a wet brush, but you don't need to drip water down. So let's get started. Colours that I'm going to be using around her today, I'm going to be using a really nice soft purple tone to complement the grey in the shading, coupled with a little bit of green and a little bit of the yellow. So I'm going to bring my paints over here, and I'm just going to lay this section up top. And you can see I've got a bit of green up here already, a little bit of blues and purples as well, and a little bit of yellow. So I'm just going to have that right there so I can see what I'm doing. I'm then dipping my paintbrush into a little bit of water off the side here, and I'm just going to pick up a little bit of this paint. And you can see once I put water on top of here, it goes nice and wet. And I'm just going to do a trial down the bottom so I can see how intense the color is going to be. So if this is your first time doing this, I do recommend doing a little trial of the color so you know how it works on your blending card. And then I'm just coming in here and I'm just kind of sort of blobbing my paint down. There's not a lot of water here, as you can see. It's not extending my paint very far. I can layer it up a little bit, but I don't like to brush back and forward with this technique as it can lay down too much color and you don't want to see any of the lines from your brush as well. And I like to kind of do a little bit of a circular blend on the edges so it's a nice smooth finish. I'm going to come in now with a little bit of purple paint here. And I'm going to come in and just layer that up a little bit. So I'm just dabbing straight over the top of the green. And one thing when you use your watercolor paint on blending cardstock is it does dry very quickly. So you do need to move quite quick when doing this technique. And you can see all I'm doing is just giving her like a really nice sort of glow around her in colors to complement what I've done with my Copics. So it's really quick. I don't think about it too much. I find with techniques like this, when you think about what you're doing and you're being really careful in laying it down, that you tend to be too precise, and it's meant to look a little bit messy. So like I said before, make sure that you do a little bit of a sample watercolor off to the side, just so you know how much water is too much water. And that way you've got less chance of coming in and doing something wrong with your image. The other thing is when you color up, when you do the watercolor backgrounds like this, and then you prepare them for your cards to photograph, the thing you do need to be wary of is that it will always come up a lot lighter in your photographs for your cards than it does on the page. So if you want it to really stand out and have some really nice effect in your photographs, you do need to come in quite dark. So you need to not be scared of working a little bit deeper. Like you can see here, I'm starting to build this color up really carefully, not being afraid to get in and do something quite dark. If you come in like here and it's a little bit too dark, you can use water just a tiny little bit, just dab over the top, and you can disperse that color out. You can see it's a lot softer now. And you can see that color's now building up really nicely around the image. You can also get a little bit of water and soften out the edges as well. You do need to be aware that when you do the watercolor backgrounds like this, it can actually affect your paper a little bit. So you can find that your paper will start to warp ever so slightly. And I don't know if you won't really be able to see here, but if I turn my page onto the side, I get a tiny little bit of bowing where that water is sitting. And that's just, it's something that you can't really avoid when you're getting this type of paper wet. But when you cut it out and apply your adhesive all over the back of your image, you won't be able to see any of that undulation in the paper. So it should stick down really quite nicely. So that's my image all colored up for today. I hope you've enjoyed practicing with this different technique. And if you are looking for any more coloring tutorials or classes, please visit www.kitandclowder.com. And we have a really good set of classes up and running with more to come soon in the class information section on the website. So thank you so much for joining me today, and I can't wait to see how you apply this to your images.